The affiliate marketing is the most common form that we see, which is essentially you promoting products online. The more people that buy it, the more commission you get at the end of it. At the moment, I'm seeing quite a lot of people come to me at the 90K for the VAT threshold in the UK, which triggers everyone to say, oh my God, I've got to deal with VAT now. How do I do that? Accountant. In most cases, that's when we see most people coming to us. Anything above £1,000, you should be reporting. Make sure you are ticking all the boxes and doing a self-assessment every year, register as self-employment, and make sure that you tick all the boxes. That's the first thing, is make sure you do the start. VAT at the moment is obviously penalised quite heavily. It will depend on the point of when you've gone over the threshold, and then it will depend on what point you register. You would have to backdate. You would then have to pay interest and penalties. The penalty system is slightly changed with the UK, of where we've now got penalty points. Everyone thinks it's simple. Okay, we get paid into a wallet system that pays us. Simple. TikTok pays us. A lot of people don't realise that's the point of when you report. You don't report when you take it out.
Hi there. So today we're talking all things to do with TikTok. So if you have recently started a side hustle, started to get monetized on TikTok, or whether you're a seasoned TikToker, then there'll be something in this video for you. Joining me today from Capture County, my colleague, Brendan. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking. Great to be back.
Let's start first and foremost with the business model. So how does TikTok remunerate creators? How does one get paid as a creator on TikTok? Let's start off with that.
There's three main routes. So you start off with the generalized creator fund, which is mainly views based. Mm-hmm. So you get paid per view, and unfortunately it's not as great as apps like YouTube and that side of things for views, but the creator fund will pay per views. Kind of more common routes, which is affiliate commission routes, which I'll go into. And then we have just direct selling through the shop, which we actually don't see as much of, but you'll be surprised the amount of UK shops that are out there compared to what everyone kind of deems as the Chinese enterprise behind this. We have, so option 2, which is the affiliate marketing, is the most common form that we see, which is essentially you promoting products online. The more people that buy it, the more commission you get at the end of it. And we see this quite a lot through TikTok. It's probably the biggest area, I'd say, at the moment of TikTok of what we deal with.
That's right. So when we get approached, obviously, by creators who have started earning money on TikTok, and then suddenly they realize they need an accountant to sort stuff out because they don't know what they need to do. So let's say the most common, like you say, are those who are already monetized, their content's gone viral, and now they can approach vendors to strike affiliate agreements and get paid through that. So typically, what kind of income levels are you seeing creators come to us with, and when is it that they start to need to take action?
In most cases, people start TikTok as a kind of like a side hustle, a side enterprise, of where they will have a paid role, and then normally they'll just be doing this on the side and building it up, and eventually you'll have the goal of getting away from their paid jobs. What I see a lot is most people don't actually trigger the accountant until they get to VAT thresholds, which is really surprising to me, to be honest. Because of the volatility of the nature of the income that you get from TikTok. At the moment, I'm seeing quite a lot of people come to me at the 90K for the VAT threshold in the UK, which triggers everyone to say, oh my God, I've got to deal with VAT now. How do I do that? Accountant. But in most cases, that's when we see most people coming to us. But it doesn't mean that there's obviously people lower than that are, because it's a side hustle, takes off quite quickly. We see, you can go from £1,000 a month to 20,000. And it is honestly, that quick, and you can do it month by month, and then it could drop the next month to 1,000 again and go up again. And, it's very easy and it's very volatile.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a quick bit of advice to them, because, as soon as you start to earn some income, you need to start thinking about, do I need to pay tax on it? So just very quickly, if you are earning from TikTok, when does it go from being a side hustle and a hobby to actually being earned income that you need to start to declare to the taxman and give them their fair share?
Yeah. So first of all, anything above £1,000, you should be reporting. Okay, so first of all, anything above that, make sure you're reporting it to HMRC. Make sure you are ticking all the boxes and doing a self-assessment every year, register as self-employment, and make sure that you tick all the boxes. That's the first thing, is make sure you do the start. What I would say is that a lot of people try and get away with TikTok and say it's a hobby. Okay, and they try and get away with the fact that they say this isn't a trade because I do it as a hobby on the side. When you start to look at the difference between a hobby and a trade, there is a principle called badges of trade, which you can go and look up. It's here, there, and everywhere for everyone to kind of get into. But the generalized idea of how I look at it, why are you doing what you're doing? If you're doing it for monetary reward, then in my opinion, it's no longer a hobby. Okay. If that purpose of what you're doing is always monetary reward and I want to get paid or I want to have a nice, go and buy a nice car or that sort of stuff out of it, then that's your purpose. That's a trade. You need to make sure that you treat it as a business and you are taxed on it accordingly.
Exactly. And that's exactly how HMRC would see it. They'd see it as a business. That's what they're going to look at. And they're already doing campaigns on clamping down on people who are doing business on eBay and Etsy and, kind of going after them. It's only a matter of time before that comes to TikTok as well. Definitely. So as soon as you start earning, if you don't already have, either do it yourself or speak to an accountant to get your self-assessment done. Because the last thing you want to do is to not pay tax and then HMRC find out and then hit you with interest and penalties. That's never a good place to begin. Okay, so in terms of if we've got some creators who are active, they're actually doing it for business purposes, they're getting paid well, affiliate incomes are rising. The next thing to talk about is if this has been their first gig, then they probably wouldn't know whether do I just receive this in my own name as a sole trader or do I move to a limited company? What would you have to say about that?
I think there's complexities to TikTok. Everyone thinks it's simple. They think, okay, we get paid into a wallet system that pays us, simple. TikTok pays us. A lot of people don't realize that once you earn the revenue through TikTok and it says on TikTok, it will show you in your wallet system and it will show your balance and what you can cash out. A lot of people don't realize that's the point of when you report. You don't report when you take it out. I've had quite a lot of people that's come to us actually quite recently that said to me, wow, I haven't taken it out of TikTok, so I'm not taxed on it. And of course, that's not the case. HMRC are going to laugh you out the door at this. So you need to make sure that you're doing it in that way. And then once, I would say a lot of people go, the progression of TikTok is always because you normally have a paid role, that side hustle that you then build and build and build. The progression is always sole trade, limited company. And the reason why a lot of people push away from sole trade into limited company is all about reinvestment. It's all about pushing away from your trade, pushing away from that paycheck of needing that affiliate commission to come in every month. If you're receiving income at the moment and you don't necessarily spend that income, it sits in bank interest, it sits in stocks, it sits in that side of things. Most people don't realize that it's actually more beneficial to have a limited company and then take out and restrict your personal income and then use the rest to invest through the limited company. You can invest at higher rates, essentially. Most people don't realize that the progression that you do is less so actually around tax. Nowadays, sole trader limited, if you're looking at just a £50,000 income or even 100, there's not a massive amount in it anymore. They've kind of, the government's killed that off. So now you've got to look at saying, well, this is no longer a side hustle. I'm not spending all of that money that we need, or I don't want to spend it. I want to take less. I want to invest. Then that's when you should be thinking limited company and you should be thinking, okay, next stage investment, I can take a lower salary or lower dividends or whatever route you want to do. And then I can invest the rest through different things. It can be, as I said, shares, stocks, it could be property eventually that you could go into. But, you need to make sure because of the volatility of the trade that there is some investments that's coming in as passive income just to make sure you can tide over the business through those kind of low months.
Yeah. So, tax has a part to play. So if you're still employed and you've got an employed role, you might be earning, if you're earning 40, 50,000 pounds and then getting paid another 10, 20,000 pounds through TikTok, all of that is going to be at a higher rate because you've already maxed out your lower rates of 20% with your job. So anything you earn from TikTok is going to be taxed at 40%. Whereas if you had a company and it was coming into the company, you could leave it in the company and only pay lower rates of corporation tax at 19% initially, then rising thereafter. So that's something to bear in mind.
I think a good point on that is to give the figures to say, well, what is the difference? At the moment we have tapered relief, which you don't need to know the ins and outs, but the lowest rate is 19%. So if you're below 50k, it's 19%. And if you look at 19% compared to sole trade of when you do your 20%, 9%, and you add that up as like 29%, 19% tax as corporation tax to then invest your money is a lot better than 29%. But obviously, if you're going in a higher rate, like Rez has said, it goes up to 49%.
Yeah.
So 49 against 19, all of a sudden the benefit's even better.
Exactly.
So that's the difference of what you've got to look at is you will still pay tax. It's just less, and then you can invest higher.
And let's say they start off with it's just in their own name. How easy is it to switch the TikTok payments from your personal name as a sole trader into a company name if you've transitioned and you've got an company set up now?
Honestly, it's quite straightforward. You incorporate your trade. So in most cases, if you're a sole trader, you incorporate the trade, which means the new limited company will own the existing trade and be the beneficial owner of the channel. And then you will get shares in kind of compensation for the incorporation into the company, which all sounds very complicated, but it's actually quite a straightforward process.
Yeah.
With TikTok, again, it's very straightforward. Just reach out to them.
It's not as, because I know with AdSense it's a bit more involved and a bit more complex getting your AdSense account changed, but with TikTok it's more straightforward, isn't it?
The simplistic kind of nature of TikTok is because TikTok is UK. So the difference between AdSense in the UK is AdSense has to worry about withholding tax in the US. So you have to refill out loads of forms. Instead of a W8BN form, you fill out W8BN form, BNE form. So there's just complexities around US tax, which complicates AdSense, unfortunately.
All right, so moving on to, let's say, the TikTokers who are now over the VAT threshold, talking about VAT. What do I need to think about when it comes to VAT for, as a TikToker? Unfortunately,
TikTok, the platform itself, which I'm sure they might not agree with, but the platform itself is not set up very well for VAT. It's not. And TikTok itself kind of holds its hands up and says, we're not going to get in the middle of this supply of saying we're the merchant of record. What that means is that in most cases, when you're dealing with VAT, you deal with where are you based, where is the customer based? And TikTok is in the UK. So you would think, oh, simple. We're UK, they're UK, 20%, that's what you got to pay. But it's not as simple as that. When you do affiliate commission basis, you have to actually, because TikTok is not the merchant of record and takes that middle ground, we have to deal directly with the shop. So that means the shop seller itself that you are promoting through TikTok, you have to go through every individual shop. And if you turn out to be, big TikTokers, that sort of thing, this could be, for hundreds of shops that you have on it. And you would have to work out where each one's based and who you're operating with, know your client. Then you would have to go and work out, okay, if they're based in the UK, I do 20%. If they're based in China, it's out of scope because it's B2B supplies and it's UK to a country or a customer that's outside the UK. So you've got to, and it's a really key point with this because it's in their terms and conditions and it's very hidden, is TikTok does not take any responsibility for VAT. So make sure you know who you're operating with, what the shops are, log it, have a lot of records behind that so that you know, okay, do I have to pay 20% VAT? It's also a good point if you're going over the VAT threshold. Know your clients, know where the shops are, know when you go over that limit, because if those shops are outside the UK, they don't go towards the VAT threshold. Yeah. So, work out UK and then have that in your mind when you're looking at the shops.
That all sounds very complex, even for accountants. I'm not sure whether your regular TikToker will be able to kind of manage all that themselves. So I guess best advice is, speak to someone in the know to help you out with all of that. Because, what are the ramifications because ultimately VAT is a self-assessing tax. You've got to declare to HMRC how much VAT you owe. It's not upon them to tell you how much you owe. You've got to work it out for yourself. Yeah. And what are the implications and ramifications of not accounting for your VAT correctly?
VAT at the moment is obviously penalised quite heavily. Okay, so it will depend on the point of when you've gone over the threshold, and then it will depend on what point you register. If you register straight away, so when you go over the VAT threshold, you should register in 30 days. Okay, if you don't register in 30 days, and let's say it gets, you didn't know 6 months down the line, you're saying, okay, what do I do now? You're going to have to backdate a registration until that point, which means you probably haven't charged any VAT in between, which means you will have to lose 20% of any sales that's during that period. There is other ways of during that period where you can reclaim VAT as well. So it's not all bad. You can reclaim that. One good example is us, accounting fees. We will always have 20% that's included in it. So you can reclaim expenses as well. So it's not all negative. It's just you would have to backdate. You would then have to pay interest and penalties. The penalty system is slightly changed with the UK of where we've now got penalty points of where you'll, depending on how many VAT returns are late, how many penalties, you'll get a point system. That point system adds up to what the penalty will be, but it is penalised quite severely. In most cases, you'll get 5% of the VAT liable for that period, and then that can go up to 10% after a certain period. So make sure you do it right. Make sure you do it at the start. It could cost you thousands in the long run.
Absolutely. I think we covered a fair bit of ground there. Is there anything else that we have missed that would be useful to share with any TikTokers watching this?
I think the most common things that I notice with TikTokers is the VAT problems. And it's really complex. TikTok does not make it easy. So please reach out to professionals that deal in it and niche in that area, because they will be able to help you quite significantly. Make sure you know where the shop locations are. Make sure you've got a system, a process of saying, well, they're based here and I've got evidence of this, because otherwise you pay 20% on everything. And I know that there is certain circumstances where those shops will be in China, will be in the US, will be wherever that is not based in the UK. And you could save some money out of this. So don't think it's all 20%. Work that out. And then I would say another kind of tip that I would give is don't rely on the month-to-month paycheck from TikTok. Expand. Okay, diversify, make sure that you kind of protect your trade in investing.
Yeah. Okay. And if some of those affiliate shops are in the UK, are you able to then raise a VAT invoice to them if you find out if they're in the UK, or you just have to take off 20% of whatever you get?
TikTok doesn't allow you to do that directly. Obviously, right. There's ways that people don't know about, like you can actually directly operate with shop sellers. Okay, you can do it through TikTok, or you can do it actually direct with the shop seller themselves. So if you were doing it direct with a shop seller, which I have some big creators that do this, you can actually charge 20% because you reach out to them. You know, you say to them, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. So I have a couple of creators that do this directly with the shop seller themselves, of when then they get their 20%. But in most cases, people lose 20%. Yeah. And that's 20% of your income, that's gone.
Huge savings to be had in terms of doing this correctly, getting advice from someone in the know. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Brendan, for that. Hopefully you found this useful. And if you're a TikToker that would like to know a bit more about the specifics of your personal circumstances, then you'll find a link around this video somewhere to book a call with us, and we'll see how we can help. Otherwise, hope you had value, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye for now.